you're not getting out of them.
Right.
That happened to me once when Eric's out of town too. And then I got stuck like in front of it was like halfway on the highway in front of the
Oh,
car wash. And so I like called him and I was like crying. So I'm like, I'm halfway on here and like semis can't see me. And I was like just a wreck. Thankfully, Dusty Timmerman drove by in the RDC pickup and saw me and like got out and helped me get out. And I was like, I don't even know what I would have done. Hello.
very good. How are you?
Hi, Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Good evening. How are we?
Another minute. Got stuck in a wheelchair once on the road. So geez, they're great college. You know, so they wouldn't let me be on crutches because they cut my kneecap in half to make it longer. They're like, you cannot be weight bearing, and if you fall, like,
I'm
I'm good.
Yeah,
Go back. Wheelchair, in a crosswalk in like a foot of snow. 300-pound office line and sitting in a wheelchair. And this 70-year-old lady gets out and trying to push me across. It's so embarrassing.
All right, it's 5 o'clock, so we're going to call the meeting to order. If you want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Jackie, you have roll.
I have roll and noting that Scott Postman is joining us via teleconference and Amy Harder is acting as president.
That's great. All right, item C, adopt agenda.
I
No
don't
changes or anything, right?
have any changes. I just uploaded another document to our second agenda item, the sale of the infrastructure. Save bonds, we'll review that together here in a little bit, but no additional changes.
I'll take a motion in a second, whenever you.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, item D, public input on non-agenda items. I don't think there's anyone signed up, so we're good. All right, item E, approval of minutes of past meetings. Nobody has any changes and wants to make a motion, take a motion in second.
Make
Motion to approve the past meeting, the minutes of past meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Sorry, Scott. It's delayed a little bit.
I'll be quicker.
All right, item F, approval of financial items. Jackie?
In the school business official report, the last several years, we have received dollars for our special ed high cost claim. Any student that costs more than the state average to fund for their special education. I submit a report in August and we get a portion of those proceeds back before the CAR is due in September 15th. And the last couple of years, they've obviously gone through and done some audits and found some additional dollars to pay those districts. So we will be getting another additional claim reimbursement for our high cost claim for the 22-23 school year in the amount of $18,165.02. There's nothing more that you guys need to do. Just wanted to give you an FYI on that. It could affect our bottom line on our next special ed supplement, which we'll talk about in the late summer, early fall next year, and I'll give you a little bit more information on that for you new board members, but really there's not a whole lot to do about that. So in the financial report, my computer's being very, very slow. We'll start with the special revenue fund report. As you can see for, now mine is not looking good for some reason. My apologies. Does your balance go down? Okay, so the difference that it's off is this property taxes that I just received, and I uploaded that incorrect report. So my apologies that it doesn't balance on the bottom, but as you can see, the dollar amounts are there before you for each of the reports. We have, in management, we have approximately $62,000 in physical plant and equipment levy. We've got around $214,000. Playground recreational equipment levy, we've got $110,000. Save close to $800,000, and then our debt service fund, I keep just those 22 cents in there. That fund is simply for debt proceeds and debt payments. So I have to use that account as a flow-through account to make our debt payments for our save bonds. Even though it's saved, that's just kind of one of the rules of Iowa. But as you can see, total balance down below for just PEPL and save together, kind of what we use for our building projects, is a little over $1 million. Playground recreational equipment levy, we will use some of those dollars for some playground improvements. Otherwise, we're setting that aside for future track improvements. We also use those dollars for floor maintenance at the end of the year for the auditorium and our gyms. And then management fund is used simply for either early retirements, workman's comp, unemployment, and the insurance for the school district as far as property and casualty insurance. So you can see those balances there. Next report is the annual treasurer's report. This is simply for general fund. So as you can see, the balances, I don't know why these did not update. That is so odd. Am I on the wrong?
Well, it says November on the top.
Says
It does. So yeah, I'm not sure why this didn't update. So let me see if I can get this. Why that didn't upload. Let's say when I checked it the last time, it was perfectly fine. Remember, mine are all backwards too, so I'm not sure something's not obviously saving correctly. Even though it says 1/5/24. So, my apologies. I will get those reports out to you guys in an email after the meeting so that you can see some updated ones. But nothing has really changed for the December report. Pretty much, obviously the same payroll, the same state aid, preschool, all of those things. But I'll get you updated reports for December as far as our total revenues and our total expenditures and get those sent out. I'm not sure what's going on with the reports, so my apologies. But that is. All of them are wrong, so.
Payroll total.
But yeah, so those uploaded correctly, so my apologies, I have no idea that when I sent it out, it was perfectly fine, and now I'm completely flabbergasted as to why those are wrong, but we'll move on to summary list of bills. Those should be correct. I did upload a pretty lengthy report here, kind of towards the end of the day for any invoices that came in from when we submitted the report online to this afternoon, simply because of the early date of the board meeting. So please take some time to take a peek at those additional invoices as well. A lot of them are officials for Mr. Cruz for basketball and such, but there are a few other ones.
Nobody has questions for Jackie? I'll take a motion to approve the financial items.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial items.
Second?
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, item G, administrative reports, discussion items, recognition and congratulations to students, staff, and community.
Yeah, one One student achievement item to note here, Liza Jeans and Gabby Rasmussen this last weekend participated in the Northwest Iowa Honor Band at Morningside College. So congratulations to those two ladies. Liza will perform at the Northwest Iowa Honor Orchestra here in a couple weeks at Northwestern. So congratulations to them. Lots of activities going on between now and our February meeting, whether it's basketball, wrestling, quiz bowl, large group speech. There's just a lot going on here now in the winter. So wish all the students the best of luck. We do not have a student staff presentation due to the inclement weather, and then Mr. Engelman's at home as well because of the weather. Mr. Harmon, did you want to give kind of an oral report here?
Yep, for some of our new board members, I just wanted to update. Each year Iowa mandates that every school has some type of reporting system for student achievement. Most of them is ISAPS, which is K or 3 through 12, but the elementary also has an additional assessment piece, and that's our FAST system, which stands for Formative Assessment System for Teachers. So that system occurs in a 3-year or a 3-cycle window each year. We do a fall, winter, and a spring assessment piece. Currently, our TLC teachers and our reading staff assess every student, and that goes all the way through 6th grade, and now actually we are including our 7th and 8th grade. The pieces of that are A reading, CBM, and then which is the fluency piece, and then also A math. So the window for that, I just wanted to update everyone, is starting this week. We're going to start today. It goes for, they're able to squeeze that into a week, and then we also have math again that will start next week. The hard part about this assessment is if a student is called proficient, that means that they've met the standard benchmark set by the state, which they can be for the fall, and then in the winter, that assessment piece or that benchmark rises according to, hopefully that their education increases, which is great. Hard thing is once they get behind that mark, then they have to really double up their efforts to get above that mark. And so then schools are kind of graded according to how many proficient students you have in your building, the amount of increase, and it does give AE staff with us quite a bit of talking point, as Jordan and I have been in numerous conversations over the past years. So we're starting that FAST assessment this week, and it's all hands on deck. We kind of have to shut down some other programs to get that done. Right now, we feel that's more of an authentic piece than like having our classroom teachers do that assessment, which some schools ask their teachers to do it. And when do they have time for that and teach all the other stuff? But we will have a report. We'll compare the fall to the winter for you guys here in February. So you can see kind of how that works together. So I just wanted to get that report. That's a big piece for us coming up. So and again, that is exciting that we're going to do something in 8th grade just to see where students are and have that information or that data go all the way through 8th grade. So
Will you push that into next week then?
yeah. So we always start with reading, and that goes as long as it takes to get done. Friday's sometimes a easier day to get everyone done, so that'll now be a full day, and we'll have to span into Monday what we do. We actually have about 3.5 weeks to get it done. That's the window for it, and we always start right away because you don't know what's going to happen. That's last
season.
Yeah. Look out the window. So we'll get started on that and get it done as soon as we can, so we can get that data and put it and see how the school ranks.
Kind of too bad they make you do it like right after break, because I almost wonder if some kids just over break, don't.
Yeah, I know, and that's where we've talked about pushing it back,
But you have a window, obviously, so like.
right, when that window shuts, you gotta have your data, and otherwise it doesn't help you, so. It is what it is, and it's a guiding piece. FAST is rather, I should say, it's rather harsh. The window jumps, and actually the winter to the spring is the biggest jump that they have for student knowledge, which you think your student's getting there and you see growth, but then when you look at that last spring mark and you're like, oh, he's still quite a way, or he or she's still a long ways away yet. So it's our teachers take that stuff pretty hard. And then they get the ISAT scores in the spring, and then they're like, okay, we're doing okay at scoring the state, but we still want that FAT score to be efficient for the kids. So. Any other questions? All right.
Thanks, Steve. All right, number 4, superintendent, the 2024-2025 school calendar.
Yeah, I just kind of want to give everybody an update on the kind of process for the adopting the school calendar. We do ultimately need to hold a public hearing, give families an opportunity to give us some feedback on the calendar. But before we even get to that, we're going to do an informal survey that'll go out tomorrow to families and staff members to get their feedback on kind of their priorities for the calendar. And then after we get that survey data, we'll put a committee together that includes staff and community members to give us some feedback. And then hopefully between here in January and March, my goal is to have our public hearing for everybody to give us feedback on the calendar and hopefully adopt that in March. And so over the course of the next 2 months, we'll give you guys some updates and keep you in the loop on how the calendars can be developed. Just know that this next school year, we don't have the flexibility like we have this year. The first legal date that kids can be in school is the 23rd of August, which this next year is a Friday. And then Christmas and New Year's falls on a Wednesday. So, there's some things that we're going to have to prioritize. And then Memorial Day is early, so it's the 26th of May. So again, this year we were able to build in some snow days. Next year, we might not be able to build in as many. So again, when we talk about snow makeup days, do we just do immediately e-learning? Do we go beyond Memorial Day? That's what that survey is going to give us some feedback on, is some priorities from families and staff members.
So that email goes out to parents and
Yep.
teachers and things.
Yep. So that's kind of the process that we'll go through. I know some districts are a little bit further down this path, but I was hoping, like we've already had, we've already had a couple snow makeup days that's going to impact the calendar. So that'll give us a little bit of feedback from folks, knowing that, again, that's going to be limited. As I look back 5 years ago, that was the last time the calendar fell with the 23rd on a Friday and Memorial Day early and Christmas and New Year's in the middle of the week. We did indeed start on Friday the 23rd. Kids came back in person on January 2nd. Just because we did it that way 5 years ago doesn't mean we're going to do it that way this time around. That's why we poll our families, talk to our staff, and put a committee together to ultimately develop a calendar that we think is best, knowing that there's no perfect calendar out there. There's no magic bullet. So for our 2 new board members, typically we go by hours. There's a minimum number of hours the state requires, 1,080. Historically, we're well over that. We're closer to like 1,150 hours, which is about 2 weeks beyond what the minimum is. And that's really driven by the fact that our teachers, their contract is 191 and a half days. So we feel that, again, traditionally, the more time that our kids spend with our teachers, even though we're going over the minimum, is a benefit to our kids' learning and ultimately their achievement.
So are there any schools that truly do just the minimum?
I think like Des Moines Public Schools is the one school district in the state that's really close to that 1,080.
So then does their staff just do more like in-service days to get their days? Okay,
Yep. So they have a lot more teacher professional development.
sure.
So again, like we ran into last year, we ran into during COVID, we can be flexible knowing that we're over the minimum number of hours. Ultimately, if we do have a lot of snow days, or we do have something that, kind of turns the calendar upside down. But as long as we're getting 1,080 hours of student instruction, and that's what we need to prioritize. And then the teacher contract days go hand in hand with the hours of instruction.
Have you heard anything about e-learning days counting towards the hours?
Yep, so that law was passed this last year. So this, last year, actually 2 years ago, you can have up to 30 hours of instruction provided through remote distance learning. Yep. So we have
Is
that,
that booked in? Okay.
we have that in that option this year with our schedule. So we were able to build in 6 snow days this year, but if we use all 6 of those up, we'll be able to actually count the e-learning this next year, where we weren't able to last year. We did it. We weren't able to count the hours for kids, but we were able to count the days for staff last year. But this year, if we need to, we'll be able to count them for instruction.
So you'll wait until meet those, make updates, and then kick it in rather than kick it in right away.
Correct. And that's why I say we don't have as many days to build in during this next school year, the way that the calendar just falls. So we might be to e-learning on the first or the second snow day. So that's just something that we'll get feedback from folks as we go through the process over the course of the next
And that was kind of the calendar committee's preference, right? Not to do the e-learning until,
Right.
they'd rather do the makeup dates, right?
I'd rather
They
be
did it
with the
last year,
kids in person.
Yeah.
I felt that that was
Yeah.
a more valuable, but we tried to balance that with feedback from families that said, we want to be done before Memorial Day. So,
So like with the calendar for next year, kind of like an example, how we have President's Day weekend, we were going to have Friday and Monday off, but now we have that built-in day, Friday, that we're going to use.
Yep.
And then, but like next year with the calendar, that Friday will probably just have to be a school day.
Most likely.
Instead of
Yep.
having that flexibility.
and that kind of depends upon feedback around, what's our priority around Christmas? You want kids back in person on the 2nd? Do we want kids back in person on the 3rd? Or do we want 2 full weeks at Christmas? Do we start on a Friday, the 23rd of August, when it's the first day available, or do we wait until the Monday, the 26th? So those are the things we're looking for feedback on.
And like Christmas Eve falls on a Tuesday, so the day before that, like, do you go back one day?
Monday, right.
I mean, because then if people are gonna travel, it seems
Yep.
kind of silly for one day, like but you gotta give it some point, I get. So, yeah, just a lot of
One
like,
day,
Yeah.
hard,
one day.
yeah.
Yep, and so we look at our athletic calendars, we look at our activities calendars, it's really holistic once that process begins. So I just want to kind of let everybody know that that's kind of coming. Those conversations will be had here in the next few weeks.
All right, number 5, board committees. Any
We had our Buildings and Grounds Committee met with Kids Club, kind of discuss what's now on the agenda. Number 3, parceling of the current bus barn property, kind of gauge their interest in that. Otherwise, we have not had any other committee meetings. Know that the Personnel Committee will kind of get going here after the state determines what our state supplemental assistance will be, kind of our state aid for the 24-25 school year. We'll begin that negotiations process. The governor's condition of the state address is tomorrow. And so typically she announces during that speech or a couple days after that what her budget is. And since school funding is the number one, the largest percentage of the state's budget, usually we get a few comments and we know where the governor sets. And then the legislature is supposed to set that within the first 30 days. Conversations that we've been hearing is most likely will be set within the first 2 weeks, which is good. So that we've kind of got an expedited budget planning process this year. We'll hopefully be able to get all those things determined and so we can set our budget. Teachers know what their kind of negotiations, what their salary increases for next year will be. So that's kind of the next looming conversation on the horizon.
All right, moving on to item H, old business. Consider second reading of revised and new policies.
Yes, so we had the first reading of these policies last month. Haven't had any changes or revisions to them. If approved tonight, we will adopt them and It will become policy, and like I had mentioned, if approved, our student handbook will be adopted or will be updated based upon the student conduct policy that's provided there.
All right, if no one has any questions, I'll take a motion in a second to approve the second reading of the revised and new policies as listed.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of the policy that's listed.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, letter I, new business. Consider engagement letter with Allers and Cooney as Save Bond Council.
So the letter from Allers and Cooney is attached. Jackie and I have actually been working with them since our last meeting in preparation for our next business item. Had a Zoom, filled out a questionnaire, many emails back and forth, but Allers and Cooney essentially represents us during today's proposal where we receive bids in addition to Piper Sandler, who's kind of the fiscal agent through the process. So it's more of a formality than anything, but they make sure that all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed and we're not doing anything inappropriate during this whole process.
All right, if nobody has any questions, I'll take a motion and a second to approve the engagement letter with Allers and Cooney as our Save Bond Council.
So moved.
Second?
All right, a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Motion carried. All right, moving on to number 2, consider resolution directing the sale of school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2024.
So earlier today, I uploaded this chart. We did receive 8 proposals, 8 bids on our $2.5 million in projects that we are looking to start here in the spring. You can see this chart here gives you a summary of those 8. Happy to see that both of our local banks, Frontier Bank and Premier Bank, were the 2 lowest bidders. Appreciate their willingness to go through that process. There are 2 of those that are highlighted, and the reason they're highlighted, Frontier Bank had the lowest bid, but they also submitted a second option. So the difference between those 2 is option B there, 4%, is for the 10-year term that we were asking for. The difference between option B and option A is the opportunity to call those bonds early. So option B has no call date, which means we'll have to pay over the course of all 10 years, hence the lower interest rate. The second option there, option A, is a little bit higher interest rate, 4.15%, but you could start paying them off early in July of 2030. Okay? So over the course of the entire repayment, we would not be able to pay any additional funds until 2030, but in the last 4 years of that, if we wanted to make extra payments, there's a chance that we could ultimately pay less interest over the course of those 9 years, 8 years, if we were to pay it off early. So again, if you want to have the option to make additional payments, that would be option A. Option B is a full 10-year repayment plan with no option to pay them off early. Okay, so if you're looking at kind of the dollar amount difference between those 2 options, it's roughly $28,000. So if we took just the 4%, the lowest interest rate offered by Frontier Bank, it's about $28,000 less than the ability to pay it off early. Now, Jackie and I did some quick calculations. In order to maybe recoup that $28,000, if you wanted to take the little bit higher interest rate, we'd probably have to pay over $500,000 in the last 4 years ahead of time. Okay? Wouldn't have to pay all $500,000 at once. We could spread it out. We could look at where we're at with our PEPL Save accounts. And then we would have to notify Frontier Bank at least 30 days that we'd like to make an additional payment. And we would have that flexibility anytime, like I said, between July of 2030 and July of 2034. So again, if we didn't pay it off early, we'd end up paying about $28,000 more than if we locked into 4% for 10 years.
Is there like the possibility of refinance?
There is not in the first one, the 4%. The call date does provide you the opportunity to try to refinance if rates would go down.
Is there a certain date that you'd have to, that you can?
We wouldn't be allowed until that
Until that,
2030, July 2030.
so you can't.
So you kind of have to take that $28,000 into consideration yet. Would it be worth
Right.
it with fees and everything else? So that's,
Scott, do you have any thoughts on it? Just because you work in this?
Yeah, he's the banker.
Yeah.
Agree with the assessment that, in the environment that we're in, taking the first option without the callable options is probably the best route. You know,
We're comfortable with our cash flow, right? Indeed, we might have the funds, but I think we've built and we plan around a 5-year projection, a 5-year kind of project plan that we may be able to pay 500,000 or more ahead, but we really, once we put this in the budget, paying it off early by 4 years, I don't know if it really gains us anything.
And there's always future projects that we're,
There's always future projects that we want to add to that list.
yeah.
A lot of that interest will already be paid by the time we could refinance anyway, so.
that's why it's that $28,000. It
Right.
becomes kind of a, $28,000 is $28,000, but it's minimal in,
Right.
the big scheme of things.
Just fees and stuff to
To even,
back will eat that 28,000.
yep. So again, that's why my recommendation is take the lowest interest rate from Frontier Bank, 4% with no call date. If you guys approve that, or if you approve the other option, we'll get the paperwork sent off tomorrow and begin that process. But again, it's my recommendation, you go with option B from Frontier Bank for 4%.
And you need a roll call vote on that, right?
Okay, well, yeah.
Okay. So a motion and a second and the roll. Correct. Okay. So if I can get a motion to approve the resolution to sell the saved bonds to Frontier Bank for 4% with no call date, I would take a motion in a second.
Make a motion to sell that option B to Frontier Bank.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second from Scott and Carrie, and I'm going to do a roll call vote for Jordan,
Yes.
Amy,
Aye.
Scott Postma, Carrie Davis,
Aye.
Scott Serban.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to number 3, consider resolution and public hearing notice for sale of parcel A of current bus barn property.
Yes, so included here, again, like Amy said, is a public hearing notice and a resolution for the sale of parcel A, which is this section, which is, right now is basically parking lot and a little bit of grass on the east side. Parcel B, we would retain, which is right now where the current bus barn sits on the east side of town. And just like when we sold the industrial tech house, we're essentially setting a minimum bid. But at our next meeting, we would, before our regular meeting, have an auction. Anybody interested in parcel A can submit a sealed bid. And as long as we have one sealed bid, then we would entertain an auction for that piece of property. It's my recommendation in talking to Amy and Jordan that we should list that at $35,000 as a minimum bid. And then, like I said, depending upon the interest, that would be the minimum. We don't have any bids for that, then we could have a future conversation about, we just hang on to that property, do we lower the price of it, do we market it differently? But to kind of begin that process, you guys are in favor of moving off of that property, we could list it and have that hearing here in February.
So you would attempt to sell it before that expires?
Correct. And then we could have a future conversation once the bus barn's completed next fall, next winter, about whether we want to keep parcel B in the current metal building that we have on the east side, or if we want to sell that at that point.
So this parcel B, it contains the building and then it also provides the way for the buses to get in and out.
This is on the beacon, if that helps. Like, so
Okay.
this is parcel A and this is,
Okay.
B is the bus barn, obviously.
So it's like, because parcel A, we're not really using, but I see, like in that picture, there's a
Right.
bus there, but we don't need to park anything there.
So kids clubs actually use some parcel A.
We have an easement.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have an easement, which is roughly, a third is the parking lot of that current parcel. And whoever is interested, those easements would continue. So that, kind of see that dashed line.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously they can still get to the bus
That's
barn.
the easement that we currently have with Kids Club. I don't have anything else to add unless you guys got any other questions.
Any questions on that, Scott? Okay, so if no questions, I'll take a motion to, we're also agreeing to the minimum bid of 35,000, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'll take a motion to set the public hearing date for February 12th for the sale of parcel A of the bus barn property with a minimum bid of 35,000.
I will also need a roll call vote for this as well.
Okay,
So moved.
Second?
Okay, a motion from Davis and a second from Menning and a roll call vote. Menning?
Aye.
Postma? Carter?
aye.
Davis?
I,
Sermon?
All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to number 4, consider policies. First reading.
So the first reading here has some updates and a couple new policies in the 700 series. You can see the executive summaries are listed there. I will note that 70104 is a new policy from the School Board Association. Just like Jackie reviewed tonight, this is a really broad policy that says your authority as a board is to kind of monitor our finances. And so Jackie does a tremendous job of updating you every meeting. The minimum is an annual report, right? But Jackie gives you that 12 times a year. Okay, so that's what the new policy is there. In addition to changes in the regulation 70402, and then a new policy for bond disclosure. So if you recall, we sold these bonds in a private kind of local offering. If we were to have sold them in a more public or a nationwide sale, this is where these bond disclosures are coming from. So again, when we started working with Allers and Cooney, it's their recommendation to kind of revise the regulation, take out the items in 6 and 7 from the regulation, and write a more robust policy that you have included here. Really, the work is Jackie, if indeed we were to sell bonds in the future. We don't have to do that with the bonds that we're kind of already moving forward with, but those are the new policies. The others, you can see, are just some additions and some revisions in those policies. So again, first reading, we'll bring them back next month for formal, kind of a second reading and then adoption. The review policies, again, based upon the School Board Association's recommendations. These are kind of no changes to these policies, maybe some minor language changes or formatting. So that's my recommendation. We're just going to review them and then will be adopted. The third, the rescinding, is because 70302 now includes the language from the spending plan
70301 includes it, the 02 gone.
that we're revising. And so, again, that'll be up for next month as well. So we'll bring that back. As long as we adopt the 70301, then we'll rescind 70302.
And 70102 transfer funds, was that a new law or that is just something that was not in policy that they recommend be in policy now?
It's new law. So boards now have flexibility at the end of, the financial year. If you've got categorical funds that are unspent, you can transfer them into any of those accounts that are listed.
We typically spend down as much as we can in our categorical funds and use those funds. We do have funds typically left over in professional development, only because we allow our teachers to utilize those funds to go and do conferences and things like that. But that's about the only one we usually have anything left over. Teacher leader, because we're kind of revamping that a little bit, but otherwise
We're spending it down, like we're overspending that carryover. Yeah, so we've kind of added additional teacher leaders to those.
Some districts just don't utilize it in those ways, and then they can transfer it, but we haven't had that as of yet.
Creates a little more flexibility.
Yep, and that's kind of a theme. It's been a theme the last couple of years, and I think you'll continue to see that as a part of the kind of budget negotiations process this legislative session. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more flexibility when it comes to finances and those categorical funds going forward. So these are the ones right now that you've got that we'll have flexibility with at the end of the year. Could be additional flexibility. We'll just have to see where the session takes us.
Good.
Do you want to take these separate since we're rescinding and then
Yeah.
giving the?
Yep. So I think you're going to take
Yeah,
the first reading.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. If nobody has questions, I'll take a motion and a second to approve the first reading of the policies as listed.
Make a motion to approve the first reading of the policies listed.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, moving on to B, reviewing. If no one has questions on these, I'll take a motion and second to waive the second reading of these policies,
Yep.
since there are no or minor changes to them.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, and then letter C, rescinding policy 70302. I'll take a motion in a second.
Make a motion to rescind 70302.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to number 5, personnel.
Yes, unfortunately, Jill Crone has submitted her resignation. She is retiring at the end of this school year. Thank Mrs. Crone for her 16 years of service to our students. As a teacher leader, been very impactful for many students over the course of her career. She'll be a very big shoes to fill as we look to recruit her replacement. So, and then Cooper Carter is volunteer boys wrestling coach. You can see completed his coursework in December, and so he'll be working with the boys wrestling program.
All right. If nobody has questions, we'll do those together. I'll take a motion in a second to approve the resignation of Jill Crone and the hiring of Cooper Carter.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Jill Crone and the hiring of Cooper Carter.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carried. All right, letter J, announcements, dates to remember.
There are a ton of events in January and February, so I just listed when our meetings are here. We will have a special meeting here in 2 weeks on the 22nd at noon, and we'll have like 3 additional pieces of paperwork to ultimately place the bonds and finalize the sale of them. And so, because the actions we took tonight, hiring Allers and Cooney, and then ultimately approving the Frontier Bank 4% proposal, now that starts kind of round 2. So we will meet at noon. If you can't make it in person, just let me know. Just like we did with Scott, we can either conference call you in or I can set up a Zoom link. But I would anticipate there's going to be 3, maybe 4 items. It's going to go very quickly. We won't have any reports or any other financial things to review or approve. It'll just be those items connected to that. And then our Monday, February 12th meeting will start at 6:55 with the public hearing for the sale of the parcel A at Bus Barn. So 6:55 with that, followed by our regular meeting. Otherwise, I don't have any other announcements.
What's basketball district quarterfinals?
So more than likely, we probably will not be playing. I would guess we will not be playing the quote unquote play-in game. But we've already approved that we're gonna have the public hearing. So again, not all 5 of you can make it. That's fine. We just need a quorum. And if you want to join for a specific item on the agenda, we can call you, make sure that you're part of it.
Discussion, make sure we will have a quorum.
Yep.
Good. All right, bill review.
All right. There's a lot.
Yes, definitely.
You can keep it. Yep, that's fine.
Drive safe, everybody. Yeah.
This is my president.
All right,
So, see some signatures required there.
you need me to, like, vice president?
No, we announced you as president to start, so you are acting as.
Thank you.
And that is to accept Allers as our bond counsel. This is to accept the 4%, not callable.
You just want to tell Scott goodbye?
Oh, bye, Scott. Bye, Scott. Bye. And then that one is just another part of it for the resolution that we are allowing the calling of, or the sale of bonds. The amount of $2,500,000.